For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.
Welcome to Auburn Undercover. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and support the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss an alert. Subscribe now and join the Auburn Undercover community. Like, subscribe, and get notified. Auburn Undercover, your source for all things Auburn.
Welcome in again, everybody, to the Terry Bowden Show on the Auburn Undercover podcast. I'm your co-host, Ronnie Sanders, and we're joined today, as always, by former Auburn coach Terry Bowden. And today we've got a special guest, Randy Campbell, who was the quarterback on the 1983 SEC and National Championship team. He played for Pat Dye. Good to be with you guys today.
Great to be here.
Thank you, Ronnie, War Eagle. And again, I want to thank Tom Haley again, who is the Haley Family Foundation, sponsors our podcast. You may know Tom or remember Tom. Not sure if you do, Randy. He's an Auburn man who his dad, Lee Haley, was an AD back with Jordan.
Tom built my house when I coached at Auburn in '92. I know Tom really well.
Hey, he built my house the next year, so I know Tom.
I know where yours was. Yeah.
Yep. Family Foundation. But thank you so much being on here. We decided that it would be fun to do. We've kind of put it off till after the championship game to talk about Auburn's championship teams, and I thought it was so great for the players. That I think, although we came around when they weren't splitting up the championship like they were in 90, 91, 92. They were all split championships. And yet you had one of the great teams at Auburn that you were a part of as a quarterback. And then we came back. I think Auburn came back and recognized the teams that had received championship designation from other teams, because that's pretty much what they did up until 93 or 94, I believe, when they started mixing them together. But great to have you on our show and great to be with us. Now, what are you doing now, Randy?
Terry, I've been a financial advisor since 1993, and so about 33 years. Spent almost all of that time in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm still working. I've got an office in Birmingham and got one partner and 2 employees, and our office is right there on 280 at Grandview. But I live at Lake Oconee in Georgia, and I've been over here about 3 years. So I work a lot out of my home, and I do commute to Birmingham probably once a month on an average. And thankfully, I've got a condo in Auburn, so I can go to Auburn and spend the night and hang out, and then go to Birmingham and kind of cut the trip in half. So I don't have to go to Atlanta.
Well, we just moved my mother to assisted living in Auburn, and my sister Robin and Jack Hines, who was on my staff, they live there. So we get back there quite a bit now as well. But I have to start just being from Alabama and having coached at North Alabama and myself, and at Sanford and at Auburn. I've been to every school. You played at Hartselle, Old Morgan County or Hartselle High School. That's Alabama territory. How did you get to Auburn? I know the recruiting area.
Well, I'll tell you what happened was the University of Alabama didn't accept your philosophy, and I was 5'11" and a half. And so, no, actually, Auburn, Dave Beck recruited North Alabama, and Auburn was the first school to invite me to campus. They were the first school to offer me a scholarship, and I think I was offered by Auburn, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt in the SEC. And then Richard Williamson was at Memphis. And you probably don't know this, but Mac Brown and Watson Brown played for the same high school coach that I had, but they were in Cookeville, Tennessee. And then the coach, Bucky Pitts, moved to Alabama. And so Watson and Mac both would recruit our high school every year, no matter where they were. And Mac just happened to be the running back coach, but he recruited me at Memphis. And I really loved all their coaching staff. Richard Williamson was the head coach, but I wanted to be in the SEC, and Auburn just seemed to be a great fit for me. But you're right. We actually, I mean, our high school football team could run on the field with Alabama and you wouldn't know the difference. We had crimson jerseys, and if they changed their socks from white to a red stripe, we did the same thing. Our coaches were big Alabama fans. So.
Oh, I know. As we both have worked at North Alabama for a while, and we weren't too far from Hartselle during those years. But those were the years of the wishbone, and
Right.
Auburn was running the wishbone. It brought back memories to watch a little bit of the '83 season again. Although the wishbone had been around for a good 10 years or 15 years, it was still the predominant offense that was run. Now, did you run that in high school? Because you ran that while you were at Auburn.
No, we actually ran the split back veer. So I did run the triple option just out of a different formation.
Right.
But when I signed with Auburn with Coach Barfield, they were an I formation team, and they ran some triple option, but they had William Andrews, Joe Cribbs, James Brooks, all those guys already there. So, but Charlie Trotman actually would have been a great wishbone quarterback if they had done that. But Alabama was running it. Stedman Shealy was their guy, and then later on Walter Lewis. He and I ended up being seniors the same year.
Oh yes.
And Mississippi State ran it back then with John Bond, and I think Oklahoma did, and probably some of the service academies still ran it.
Yeah, it was it was still going strong at that time with so many people. But the '83 season, and I want to go back because again, you were the captain of the '82 and the '83 teams, the '83 team for sure. But you were the quarterback of the '82 and the '83 teams. Right. And as I look back and think back to those years, it was almost, I don't know, it kind of began with the big win over Alabama in '82. It seems like when y'all won that game, went on to win the Tangerine Bowl, it kind of mentally got y'all ready for the upcoming season.
It really did. And, I was thinking about that today. And, I mean, Terry, we were so close to being really good. We were really good in '82. We lost to Florida 19-17 in Gainesville, and we were winning the game 17-13 with about 2 minutes to go. They kicked a field goal, onside kicked it, got it, threw two passes, and kicked a field goal with 20 seconds left to beat us. And we were 9-3. The other two losses we had, we got beat by Nebraska bad, and they were ranked 1 or 2 in the nation. We got beat by Georgia, and they were 1 or 2 in the nation. They were undefeated. It was Herschel's last year. And we were winning the game 14-12 in the fourth quarter, and Herschel ran a long touchdown, like 57 yards. But when the game was over, we had the ball inside their 10-yard line and couldn't score. But that's how – I mean, we only got beat bad by one team, and the other two were, a 5-point loss to a top 5 team and a 2-point loss to Florida and Gainesville. So we were really good in '82, but you're right, that Alabama win and then the win against Boston College in the Tangerine Bowl really gave us that extra bit of confidence going into the '83 season. But we had a great senior class in '82, a lot of leadership, and we also had a great class in '83, a lot of leadership. And interestingly, all of us were recruited by Coach Barfield, but we all thrived under Coach Dye.
Well, sometimes a little different style, a little bit different. A lot of story that a lot of people don't know. When Coach Dye came in, they had offered my father the football job, but he had just he had just been undefeated 79 and 80 at Florida State. And he just felt like he had a chance to build a program there. But he said, go get that guy, that Dye guy from Alabama. He'll know how to beat Alabama. Go get somebody that knows how to beat Alabama. And sure enough, they found a guy that knew how. And I always thought that was important, that Coach Dye, although he played at Georgia, he understood the insides of Alabama, how they thought, how they recruited, how they did. And he knew what he had to do in his building his team and building an SEC tough team and recruiting that you had to do to beat Alabama.
He did. He really did. And he found out that first winter and spring who wanted to be a part of that.
I bet.
And there were 30 or 40 people that decided no.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I got there as the head coach, I still had Wayne Hall, who played for Coach Bryant, but played for coach with Coach Dye, Rodney Garner, who played for Coach Dye. And in our first spring, and I watched my first practice, I about had to close my eyes. I said, "God," because I had come from Sanford. I had been around Division I football, but I had been at Sanford 6 years, and I said, "Dang, I forgot how tough it is." I didn't think our guys would stay out there. We had enough of the old school people like you did that there was a way that football was. I'm not sure we'd all be in jail today if we coached like we did back then.
Yeah, well, I've got to tell you a quick story. I don't know if you remember this, but I was on the '92 staff at Auburn.
Yeah.
Oh, Jimbo Fisher took my place coaching.
I had to bring him.
Oh, I know you did. And but after you got there, I mean, like this was in January,
right?
And so me and my wife and our nose guard that played back then, Dow Altman, and his wife Brenda.
I know Dow and Brenda. I know him. Yeah.
And Tom Haley.
Yeah.
And his wife at the time. The six of us decided, let's go to the supper club one more time before we all get out of town. So we went in there early, like 9 o'clock. So there's nobody in there. We're just going to have a couple of beers.
Yeah.
But when we were in there, we started talking about what would happen the next year in '93, your first year.
Yeah.
And, and Tom will get mad for me saying this since y'all are good friends now, but he said something like, 5-6, and Dow said like 5-6. And I told him, I said 9-2. And they looked at me and they said, 9-2, are you crazy? I said, look, guys, we were 5-1 and we should have been 9-2. There's a lot of really good football players on this
team. There were.
Yeah. But y'all did a great job. I love seeing Stan White have a great senior year.
And I
just loved, the offense that y'all ran and keeping people off balance with misdirection, all the bootlegs and things like that. I loved watching it. It was fantastic. Y'all did such a great job.
Well, it's a little bit like the wishbone. And let me say that you mentioned the split back veer. My dad went down when he was the head coach at West Virginia. Went down to Houston, visited with a guy named Bill Yeomans, and put in the split back veer. So that's all I ever ran in college.
Yeah.
And what my father ran the first year at Florida State was the split back veer, which a lot of people don't realize. That's a right halfback and a left halfback. But it's a triple option without a lead blocker. It's a triple option, just like the wishbone, but it just comes out of a different formation. But it was also very big. And my brother Tommy was on that staff with Barfield as well. I'm pretty sure he coached running backs on that group, and he was there with that group now. And you're right, what outstanding athletes. But I want to go back and just let me go back because I've got to ask you. You ended up you're beating Alabama 23-20 in 11 and 1. SEC champions, first time since 1957. Sugar Bowl champions against Michigan. Ended up being number 3 in the AP and the UPI, but you were named national champion by Billingsley, New York Times, and others.
Yep.
And yet, like my 93 team, nationally didn't get recognized as the champion. I thought it was so good for the players that your team and our team, at least by Auburn, were recognized as national champions. And Alabama has about 6 or 7 of those bad boys that I don't know who the name of that company is that named them. But so it really was no different than it had been done for a long time. But I look at the teams you beat. And I'm going to say this, as you finished up and went to play Michigan, a lot of people wonder why you didn't go play Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. They were number 1. Miami was number 5, and y'all were number 3. Back then, the conferences were tied to bowl games.
That's right.
And Auburn had to go to the Sugar Bowl because that's where the SEC went. And or I know Auburn would have played Nebraska. Would have been happy to have played Nebraska under that circumstances. Mm-hmm. But did you think when you won that game and Nebraska got beat that y'all were deserving, or that how did that evening go and that next day? It must have been a difficult devastation.
When our game was over and we already knew Texas lost to Georgia, and they were number 2, so they were out.
Right.
And then when we heard Miami upset Nebraska, I mean, we partied on Bourbon Street knowing that we were the national champions.
Yeah.
There was no question about it because, and now we didn't really know this at the time, but we had just played the 5th hardest schedule ever played in college football.
That's right.
In the history of college football at the time. Now, since then, the SEC's gotten so good that a lot of SEC teams, or a lot of Auburn teams, have probably had harder schedules because Alabama and Georgia have been so good for the last 15 years. But we beat all these teams ranked in the top 10 and all these bowl teams. And back then, there were only like 16 bowl games.
Right.
And I mean, we had 3 common opponents with Miami, and one of them was Florida, who we beat 28-21, and they lost to Florida 24-3.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is not great to say, but I got an award by the the Birmingham Monday Morning Quarterback Club, and I went there to receive the award. And this was like in January or February after that season, and the guest speaker or the keynote speaker was Howard Schnellenberger, and I had to sit there and listen to him tell all these people from Alabama how great their team was and how they beat they beat Purdue and they beat Virginia Tech and they beat Mississippi State, and I'm sitting there about to throw up because they were it was awful.
They didn't know.
I'm very glad that Auburn has done this. I appreciate it very much for all of our all my teammates. I mean, we're very grateful for it.
And I advocated for that for a long time, Randy. I am too. It's about time. It's been a while.
I mean, I think about it, and look at that team. And again, I think I want to reiterate: toughest schedule in FBS, 9 bowl teams beaten, 8 top 20 teams, 5 top 10 teams. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even close when it came to who you played. Right. I think that was the Miami-Nebraska game where Osborne went for 2.
It is,
and so it caught a lot of attention, but it still was one that. Miami. Beat only one because the coach Nebraska probably felt like if they would have gotten a tie, maybe they win the championship with a tie. I don't know.
They should. They would have. They would have been 11-0-1, and they still. So I have no idea. I don't know why he did that. If they kick the extra point, he wins the whole thing.
Yeah, that a lot of us don't know that why. But let's go back to that season because I don't want to talk about the opening. You went over Southern Miss. I think that's funny. I opened with I always open with Ole Miss, and I'd always have Southern Miss on my schedule. But I always felt that most championship years, you don't get to go undefeated. You lose a game.
Yeah.
And so your whole success depends on how you respond to a loss. And y'all had a loss in your second game that you had to respond to. Yes. And how did that go through your head, and how did that handle? You lost to Texas is a game number 2, 20-7. Right. And that's kind of one of those points where a team can go either way when that happens.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, it could have. We had a very mature team. I think we had a lot of seniors. I just think that, Coach Dye did a great job with us. He kept telling us, he said, look, he said, this one game has nothing to do with the SEC championship. And actually we can still win the national championship. And he just got us really focused. And, we had to go to Knoxville that next week and play Tennessee up there. And we went up there with a lot of confidence and got down to business. And, every practice we had, people were super tuned in. There was no, you didn't, as a coach, I don't think back then you had to worry about anybody, loafing or doing anything out on our team. I mean, we were there for a purpose. And I think that, the Texas game, it was one of those games where they had a great defense and we had a really tough time moving the ball on them. But really the game was decided in some of the kicking game things. They had a punt return inside our 20 and they threw a deep ball and our corner tripped and fell down, and it was like an 80-yard play. There was a couple of little – it wasn't like they – outmatched us so much. It's just we had a hard time scoring, and they got a couple of easy ones that they shouldn't have gotten. But we had some goals, and we were a very close team, really loved each other, cared about each other, had great chemistry, right, both sides of the ball, and had great leadership.
I've often wondered too, as I've kind of been a student of the game, and of course I'm, like I say, I turned 70 this year, so I kind of grew up watching the Wishbone and the Veer. But the Wishbone, again, was designed by Emory Bellard at Texas, and I think 66, 67, they won a couple of national championships, and I guess they knew the Wishbone about as good as anybody as far as what they knew how to handle, because those coaches had seen it year in, year out. Although I will say this, most teams I think were running the Wishbone by that time. That's 10 years after, or 10 or 15 years after it kind of got in, kind of like the no huddle fast break stuff now. That was kind of it went around and it's kind of being changed now in that game. But the team that you mentioned, I looked at the roster. It's I mean, Bo Jackson, Lionel James, Donnie Humphrey, Steve Wallace, Doug Grech. I mean, there was some great talent. But I look at some other guys that I know personally, a lot of character on that team too. Because I think, leadership, I think if you got to have talent, but great leadership. And again, you were the captain of that team, but a lot of character, a lot of players with great character on that football team as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we're a very close group. I mean, we still, we get together every 2 or 3 years in Auburn for a game. And when we have some kind of reunion like that, it's well attended.
Talk about your backfield. I mean, if I remember right, you had Lionel James and Bo Jackson and what?
Tommy Agee. Yeah, we had Lionel and Bo, and we had Greg Pratt.
Tommy Agee, I think.
Tommy Agee in '83, Greg Pratt in '82, and heck, Fullwood was a backup. Hey, Tim Jesse was a backup. He's got a Super Bowl ring with the Redskins.
Holy cow!
I think Collis Campbell was our other backup, but we had some great running backs and. Heck, we had 3 tight ends that all played in the NFL.
I thought y'all did.
Yeah, Ed West, Jeff Parks, and Ron Middleton, all 3 played in the NFL. And Tamburillo, offensive line, Steve Wallace, offensive line. David Jordan played for the Giants, offensive line. And then I think 2 deep on our defensive front 7, which would be 14 guys. I think now some of those were underclassmen, but I think 11 of the 14 of those guys played in the NFL. So it's funny. I've read some things. I read some on your website. Sometimes, Philip will be talking about how many guys have gone to the pros from some of these different teams. And that when we played Florida in '83, I heard a couple of years later that there were 53 or 54 players on those 2 rosters that played in the NFL at least 1 year. Wow. That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The talent level was so good, and again, in the SEC, it's always been that way, been that good. But let me go back. I'm trying to think. Now, you were there in Bear Bryant's last days too, weren't you? And he was still an icon, I guess. And but I don't want to talk about him as much as I do Coach Jordan, because you knew Coach Jordan. He wasn't coaching when you were there, but he was still around, I believe. He passed away in '80. What?
Yeah, I met him in '79 when I was a freshman. I met him in the athletic department, and he still had an office in there, I believe, and was up there, quite often. But I didn't really get to know him well. But I've got it, like Rusty Dean was Rusty and Sally lived in Sewell Hall.
Sure.
And
they were there when I was there.
Yeah, he played for Coach Jordan, and then so many other, Coach Dave Beck and Roger Mitchell and Randy Walls and all these guys I've gotten to know so well through our Veterans Club that played for Coach Jordan. So I feel like I knew him. He was a great man.
Yeah, Dave Beck and Johnny Simmons from Childersburg. They're the ones that kind of introduced me to Auburn. The punt game was while I was in high school, and I was looking for a college to go to, and I bought into that. Look at all the walk-ons that are making it, but that was 10 years before the '80s. There weren't a whole lot of walk-ons starting at Auburn. I don't think when you played there might have been 1 or 2, but those were loaded teams by that point in time. Coach Dodd, I figured he figured out beating Alabama, you better have people that can line up and play against Alabama. And you had a pretty good backup, Pat Washington, a good backup behind you at quarterback that came along later on and been a pretty good quarterback.
Pat started most of the next 2 years after that. And, and the 3 of us that dressed out every game for '82 and '83, Mike Mann was the other one. Mike was the backup when Pat was a freshman. And then the next year they swapped. But I remember, I think it was '84, Georgia Tech came to Auburn, and Pat was hurt and couldn't play. So Mike started the game, and at halftime, I think we were winning 42-0. And at the end of the game, it was like 42 to 30 something. We didn't score again, but I watched him play the first half of that game, and I said, I'm glad he didn't play that good when I was playing. I might have been sitting on the bench. He had such a great game.
The wishbone that you – what's that?
Jeff Berger came in when I was
he
was a freshman when I was a senior. And I think he was really happy that we got out of the wishbone. I think he, Pat Sullivan coached him, and he got to throw it more and and all that. He loved it.
Yeah, my dad. I think my dad took the split back veer, which you said you ran in high school. My dad was able to incorporate that into a more of a passing attack by having the backs get into routes, and the tight end and the flanker and the split end. And
Yeah.
the wishbone doesn't relate to this passing game quite as much as the split back veer could develop into the passing game as well there. But the thing that there was an old saying I know when I got to, or maybe I might have invented it from my own fear, is that you can be 9-0 at Auburn and have saved your career, but you ain't saved your job yet because you ain't played Georgia or Alabama, and y'all had to finish up those years like I did with Auburn, with Georgia and Alabama, and those things. I'm gonna say your last three games, it was like 6 points, 3 points, and 2 points. The defense was maybe one of the best defenses we ever had, but that little run right there, I guess you learned to play a game that was, nowadays, if the people that are good aren't winning by 3 touchdowns, they don't know how to play.
Right. Yeah, we had a lot of close games, back then, and a lot, low scoring games compared to today's, standards pretty much. But it seemed like that year, if our opponent scored, 25, we'd find a way to score 28.
Yep.
And if we could only score 13, then our defense would hold them to 7. It was just one of those deals that it just kind of always worked out, except for the one game.
Yeah. And I think Alabama game went that way. They came back and scored at the end and just kind of flipped it around, and y'all responded almost immediately. Of course, there was a pretty good guy that helped you respond.
Yeah, he had a great game. I don't remember if it was 250 or 260 something yards in that game, Bo. Coach Dye always said, the great players play their best in the biggest games, and Bo definitely did that.
Yeah, he had 256, a 71-yard touchdown run, and a 69-yard touchdown run. I went and looked at his NFL career. He still had the record for 2 touchdowns in the NFL over 90 yards, but amazing talent, which I guess I should ask you. I'm sure you get asked so many times. When you first saw him come in, how soon did you know he was going to be a great? Was it in practice? Could you see that?
Yeah, I knew he was different the first day because the very first day he was there, they put him at fullback because he was so big.
Yeah,
he was 6'1", 225 or 30 pounds as a freshman. And they put him at fullback. And I remember, we were going to just run like our basic triple option to the right. And we're just wearing shorts and headgear. And I got the snap from the center, no lineman except the center. And I put the ball out for Bo, and I kind of put it in his ribs on the side. And I turned around and looked at Bud Casey, our running back coach. I said,
I know, Bud.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there 4 years, even, it's my first year to be a starter, but I've still been there 4 years. I'm one of the older guys, and Bo's been there 10 minutes. And I said, Coach, you need to back him up a little bit. He's lined up too close. And Coach Casey said, I got it. So he got him lined up. We ran the same play again. And I think I put it even further back here the second time. And I looked at Coach Casey and he said, you got to speed up, son. That guy, I mean, he got to the line. From where he lined up into the line of scrimmage was so fast, I couldn't get the snap and get the ball to him. And the very next day, he was at right halfback. So I think Coach Dye saw something and said, we can't. He would have been the greatest fullback that ever played at Auburn, but we couldn't waste him there. We had to have him at halfback.
I tell you, what kind of I formation tailback he'd have been, because I came up during the I. I came up as a coach. For the first 13 years, I ran nothing but 11 personnel in I formation, counting the Sanford and Salem and Auburn. We ran the old I, but he would have been a great I back as well as a wishbone back.
In the 82 Alabama game, we ran the I for about probably 3 series with Bo at fullback and Lionel at tailback.
How about that?
Yeah, and we ran the triple option out of the I. And, I mean, it was like you didn't even have to read the tackle because Bo got there so fast, you just handed it to him every time.
Randy, talk about that 82 game. What after 9 years, what did that mean?
Man.
And what did it mean to die? I mean, because I haven't been on the other side during part of that.
Yeah, I just, we had been close a lot of times before, I had seen and I had read about too and heard about, but it just seemed like we couldn't finish the game against them. And when Coach Dye got there, he basically, changed our mindset and worked us hard enough to give us the confidence that we could finish a game and win in the fourth quarter. That's why he talked about it all the time.
Yeah.
When we're doing conditioning and strength training and also not beating ourselves, with fumbles and stupid penalties and things like that. Those are all the things he preached all the time. And I think that game was so huge as far as the emotional part of it for our fans and our team and our, coaches, but also just that, hey, we broke the streak.
Mm-hmm.
And that shit's over,
Yeah.
and then we beat him again the next year. And actually Auburn should have beat him in 84 and 85. And we, one of those was the play that went the wrong way. I think we lost by 2. And then the next year, Van Tiffen kicked a moonshot field goal to beat us at the end. But I don't know. I think Coach Dye, was he 6-6 in 12 years? Is that what his record was against Alabama?
Yes, he was 6-6. He sure was.
Yeah.
And
so, but I think, when we won that one game, it changed everything for a long time.
Yeah, it did change. It did change things and make it so much different the way they played in those football games. Now you played in the old Iron Bowl too. I mean, when the Iron Bowl was in Birmingham, very important that we brought that. I think one of the things that probably endeared Coach Dye, as well as beating Alabama again, being part of and not having to go through those losses. Bringing that game back to Auburn, probably as big a move at Auburn as any move that's been done.
Yeah. I loved going there just because I love the fans being 50-50 and the standing back and forth and all that. I kind of wish there was a stadium that would be proper to have. I wish there was a way that they could do home and then a 50-50 game like every 3 years.
Every third year. Yeah.
Every third year and do that. But I don't want it to really to be at Legion Field. I don't know, if we had, but I don't want to go to Atlanta to watch the game. So I don't think it'll ever happen, but
not anymore. Legion Field, I coached in the last 2 Iron Bowls that were at Legion Field, but it got dilapidated. I won't say dilapidated. It got run down and the neighborhoods, it got difficult to have a game. It's a shame because you're right. If you could have a 50-50, and a lot of people don't remember Mississippi State, you played a lot of times in Jackson, Mississippi. That's where they played their big games. And Arkansas played their big games in Little Rock quite a bit. I coached 1 year in Little Rock. War Memorial Stadium. I think that's what. But I guess the fan season tickets and things like that changed. You couldn't be consistent to your season ticket holders and things like that, and the seats that they had and all that stuff. But let's go on to and talk a little bit before I let you go, because that the season and the game. Well, let's go back to the Michigan game. Talk about the Michigan Bowl game, what they had in that game. That was a huge win too in the Michigan game as well, because in y'all's mind, like I said, when you went to bed that night before the game, it's hey, we win this game, we're there. And as that game was played, it was a tight football game, and they were thought by many to be one of the most talented teams in the country.
Yeah, they were 9-2 regular season, and if I remember right, they lost by a combined total of either 3 or 4 points. The 2 losses, both at the end of their games. I remember the most interesting thing I remember about before we ever went to New Orleans, the first meeting we had after the Iron Bowl to get ready for the Sugar Bowl. Coach Crow looked at me. He never called me Randy. He called me Campbell. He says, Campbell, he says, I got to tell you something. I said, what's that, Coach? He said, every single starter on their defense can run faster than you. And I wasn't slow. I ran, I think my fastest time ever was like a 4.68, but I was really I was a mid 4.7, 4.75, 4.76. That was, but he said every single player on their defense can outrun you. And I tell you what, I think after we played him, I think he was right. But Coach Simbeckler, he was a very wise man. And in the press conference before the game, the press asked him a question, and he said, you know what? He said, Auburn may beat us, but they won't beat us running the football. And he said, and Coach Dye was sitting right beside him, and I think he baited him. We threw six passes the whole game. I mean, and we normally threw about 10 or 12 out of the wishbone, but we threw 6 in that game. And I mean, we ran it, but it was just, they were really good. They put 9 people on the line of scrimmage because we weren't going to throw it. And,
I read today that Dye was the first coach in the SEC to mandate drug testing, which I didn't realize.
Oh, really? I didn't know. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I guess he mandated urine and blood tests. I don't know if you remember that, but I read that earlier today. I didn't realize that.
Now nowadays, I think I was still coaching when we were mandated that we couldn't do it. it went a lot further when they said you can't do that. It's evasive or whatever, and all those things. In that part of the game. But again, what's that? And we've got a new system where it's kind of sad that Auburn's got a point where it's been a long time since they won. I like the new coach. He seems to have a lot of. It's going to take somebody with that energy and toughness, and because I think the toughness part has got to be there in the SEC. I don't think there's not a soft way you can get through the conference. But it seems like to me, if he can pull all those old in with the new and combine that, he seems like he's got a good work ethic and can get this thing turned back around.
Yeah, I hope so. I've not met him. I didn't know much about him, but listening to some of his interviews over the last couple of years before Auburn even needed a coach.
Yeah,
and reading, I think it sounds like he's probably a good cultural fit for what we as fans, want. I mean, he says he's committed to running the football, and I hope we are a lot more physical up front on the offensive line than we've been in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Man, you watch that Indiana-Miami game, you're talking about you see where football games are won right there.
Right.
Miami had a great defensive line, and Indiana, I can't believe they could run the ball that good. I mean, I think they had 2 plays where they lost yardage on running plays, and they would hand it. It'd be 3rd and 4, and they'd gain 7. I mean, it was unbelievable.
I'd
love to get back to being able to run the football when you have to run it.
How about just trying to run the football?
Yeah.
Well, there's a, and I went through it. I had to learn like a lot of people. It went to such a 4 wide out game where maybe 85 to 115 yards would fit into that style, but it gets you. You didn't win games in the 4th quarter. You have to learn. You have to work your way through it, because it's just football is a game that if you don't change a little bit every 10 years and stay on front of the curve, whether it be the I formation, the I pro, or the wishbone, or 11 personnel as opposed to or 12, there are some things that change. But I do a podcast every game for our teams all over, and I couldn't say it enough. The team that can run the football the most has got the best chance to win. I used to tell my coaches, man, I want time spent running your last 4-minute offense, because most games, like Coach Dye said, are won in the last minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And the question is, can you run and not throw it when they know you're going to run? Yeah. And that's don't give them one more chance and we win, because you always say, well, the defense lost the game. No, offense, run the football when they know you're going to run, and they'll never get it back.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's about.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ron. Ronnie, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we were talking about goalish a minute ago. Did you ever think that you would see somebody coaching at Auburn who was born in Russia, raised in New York, and graduated from Ohio State?
Probably not.
I know I didn't. It's a different day, but I'm like you. I think he coaches with an edge, which Auburn hasn't had in quite a while. And so I think he's got a chance. I really do. Yeah. I mean, everybody keeps talking about. We talked about this before we got on the air. Auburn hadn't won more than 5 games in 5 years. So try something different. And this is certainly different.
Yeah.
Well, I think you coach with confidence, but to a degree, I think he will. You got to coach a little bit with a chip on your shoulder. You know, Kurt Cignetti's father, Frank Cignetti, was my dad's offensive coordinator at West Virginia. Then he was my head coach. Tommy and I, our head coach, after my dad left. And Kurt was about 5 years behind me. I've known Kurt since he was little. His dad was the brightest offensive coach that I'd ever been around. And so Kurt didn't just get it from spending some time with Nick Saban's staff, because Nick coaches defense, but you've coached and I've coached. When I watch Indiana, and this is just a general statement, I thought they were. There's not an area of football that they didn't coach better than the teams they were playing. Offense, defense, run, pass, special teams, every area. Don't give up the deep ball. Kurt's 64 years old. He goes back to the age where you had to learn how to fundamentally coach. And not just play as fast. Fast football reminds me of a video game sometimes, you know. And we don't teach the basics. We just see how fast we can play, as if that's going to be the total answer.
Yeah. I was talking to Coach Crow after that game, who was my coach.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, Indiana's secondary looked like what I used to see. They play zone almost every play. And they keep everything in front of them, and you can actually tell pre-snap if they're in 2 deep or 3 deep. I mean, it was like old school.
Yep, that's exactly right. And they see the ball, they can attack the ball, and they can keep the ball inside of them, and they tend to not make those big mistakes. And I covered so many games in the country, I could not find a box they didn't check. Don't give up the big play, stop the run. Their quarterback threw the ball less than any guy in the top 12 teams. But he threw 41. He threw 15 more touchdowns than anybody. But he didn't throw it. They ran the ball more than they threw it. So anyway, I know those are all things. You have to believe that at Auburn, and Golish has a good background. I think he was at Toledo or somewhere coaching when I was in the MAC conference, and I want to say coached with Todd Campbell and some of those guys up there in those days, but he's been pretty good schooled, and I studied the quarterback they got. I don't know if you know much about him. I watched them play quite a bit because the quarterback was a hot item, and he's a pretty good quarterback. So I think he does have a quarterback we can build around.
Yeah, I think so too.
What are the wishbone? The one thing about you, I want to get back. You're talking about you ran a 4.7. I always felt like a wishbone quarterback. It's smart running more than it's the pure running skills or a gazelle type runner, because I guarantee that the faking and the handoff and all those things, you're running smart or making decisions as you go.
Right. It's, a lot of times, a lot of the runs that I made, when I would keep it were runs for first downs.
Right.
And, I didn't run 40-yard touchdown runs, and I didn't cut back across the grain and run, I wasn't fast enough or talented enough for all that. But, when it was 3rd and 2 and we'd run the trap option or whatever, a lot of times I would end up keeping it because I could see how far you had to get there. But I mean, I based it off whatever I was reading. It was real important to me to get a good grade on Sunday morning as far as, what I was supposed to do. And so, but it was, I had never run that offense before, but I loved it. I really did. It was great.
It's a smart man's offense, and it's understandable why the academies still run it, because they want to pay 11 people playing together, knowing their assignments and knowing exactly what to do. And I was taught that a good fake is better than 2 good blocks. If you can make a great fake and get 2 or 3 linemen to defensive people to step one step the wrong direction, that 4-5 becomes a 4-7. And a wishbone has a lot to do with that, faking and them not knowing where the ball is going.
Yeah. Terry, I want to share something with you before we run out of time. I want to make sure we have time. But so you saw our schedule in '83.
Right.
We played Florida State.
Oh, yeah, 27-24.
Yeah, we were losing that game 24-20 and late in the 4th quarter, and we had 2 4th downs on our last drive that we converted. The first one for a first down, the second one was for a touchdown, and then Florida State got the ball back, and they're driving, and they're already to midfield, and they can kick a field goal and tie the game. And Greg Carr intercepted a pass, and that was the end of the game, basically. But the next week, Sally Dean calls me in my room and says, Randy, she always put the mail out.
Right.
in the boxes in Sewell Hall. So she calls me and she says, Randy, you got to come up here. You've got a letter from Coach Bowden. And I said, oh my goodness, this is like Wednesday or Thursday. So I go up there and there's, a Florida State envelope and it's got Coach Bobby Bowden, typed at the top. And I opened it and he wrote me the nicest letter after that game. And it meant so much to me that I had it framed.
How about that?
I had this in my, whatever sports room I've had forever. And, but the very last part of it, I don't want to read it all to you, but the last part, it just says, I hated to lose to you last week, but you and your teammates are a class team, very clean and especially gutty. I'm proud of you, Coach Bowden. And it always meant so much to me. He's the only coach that ever wrote me a letter or anything like that. I mean, so, your dad, he was a class individual and really respect him. And I got to meet him. I think it was in the spring of '92. Tommy took me down there when we were both at Auburn. And I guess maybe they were having their spring training. It was a different date than ours.
Right.
So I got to go in his office with Tommy and say hello and meet him and shake his hand. I got him to autograph a Florida State hat and I brought it back and gave it to my wife. So she still got that. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about that just because I thought it was a cool story and I thought you might appreciate it.
Well, I really do appreciate it. Again, we lost him about 3 years ago, this past summer. And the more I go around the country speaking, and a lot of times at churches and things like that, Dad, his impact, I think, was off the field as much as on, with letters like that. And it's almost like I say, gosh, I wish I could have been as thoughtful, and I tried to be. But those are the things that he did that I'm finding out over and over again, which hopefully all of our coaches understand, as you did, that down the road, these young men, and you've got, and let's finish with that. Some of the players that you said you've got teammates on that team that you are real close to. Any comments you might have about players that you have a special relationship with, or events or game time things or post game, during the game, about some of the players there? Because you have a bunch of great players on that team.
So you said you knew Dow Altman, right?
Oh yeah, Dow and his wife.
So Dow was our starting nose guard for 3 years, 81, 82, and 83. But he was such a character. I mean, he was just one of a kind. But he would come up to me in the locker room before we would go out on the field and look. He'd look me right now and say, Randy, he said, I hope you throw 3 interceptions today. or I hope you fumble it twice today. And he would just say that to me. And I don't know if he thought he was trying to loosen me up or if he was loosening himself up. That was one of the funniest things that ever happened. And he did it. He didn't do it every game, but he did it a lot. But, the crew of guys, I mean, one thing about, they're all great people. They've got great families, and they've all been very successful in what they've done. I mean, we've got orthopedic surgeons and lawyers and architects and insurance sales guys like me, and, just every kind of thing you could think about. And I'm surprised how we've lost so many of them. That's a little,
that's the
strange.
toughest thing.
We're somewhere between 15 and 20 now of teammates that we've lost from that team. So
yeah, that's always sad. And one that you mentioned, one who coached for me, who is probably one of the most unique backfields, the horse and pony backfield, Lionel James.
Yeah.
I hired him, but it was one of the most unique backfields because one play you saw him lead blocking for Bo, and the next play you saw Bo lead blocking for him. But he was but when you look at the highlights of the season, he had quite a few big plays himself.
Oh gosh, yeah, he did. And heck, that 82 game against Georgia, the one I told you we lost by 5 and had it inside the 10, he had I think it was an 86-yard touchdown run in that game. And he scored our only touchdown against Georgia in 83 in Athens, and we had 2 field goals. But Lionel was a great player. The second 4th down against Florida State, it was 4th and 8, and I threw a pass in the flat. We used to break that. We broke the wishbone when we had to throw it, and we put trips to the field. So we had one back, one receiver to the short side, and trips to the field. and he was basically the wing right off the tackle, and he ran in the flat, and nobody covered him, and I threw it to him, but he caught it and turned upfield and scored that touchdown at the end of that game. But Lionel was a great player.
Yeah, great player,
great person,
great person as well. Again, we added him to our staff there in my final years there, and it was sad to lose him. Like I said, so many of the players that we do lose. But Randy, I appreciate you being on the show. This has been great. I think I found out a lot of things I didn't know about the '83 team. And sometimes when you're coaching, like here I am, my first year as a head coach up in Salem, West Virginia. You don't get to watch other teams quite as much that aren't in that area. Yeah. But everybody kind of know about the '83 Auburn team, especially by the time you got to the end of the season and into the big games with Alabama and Michigan. But thank you so much for joining with us. And I look forward to seeing you because I'm no longer coaching and broadcast. I get to go to games actually once in a while. So
that's good.
The Georgia game was my first game to come back. And then I went, we honored our '93 team and your team in the Mercer game, I believe. Yeah. And so that was a great day there. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And I think all Auburn people appreciate the great years that y'all had there and what you did for Auburn.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy.
Okay.
Yeah, Randy's great.
Very good, Randy. Of course, you said you had gotten, and I didn't mention after he coached, he was on the broadcast team for a while and worked with the Letterman of the Alumni Association for a while. He stayed very involved and still does with Auburn now as he's down the road and still stayed very close and a lot of great comments. He mentioned this, that he was the quarterback coach when I came in, but I was bringing Jimbo. It was one of those situations where he's a good coach. I'd heard all about my brother Tommy was so high on him. But I said, Tom, I don't bring all my coaches, but I got to bring Jimbo. He was with me since he was a freshman in college, played with me and was my quarterback coach. And so, but we all have a road that it looks like he's not hurting too much in the success he's had after football and doing real well.
Yeah, I was just thinking that those guys started a great.
I've lost your Ronnie. I've lost your voice, so I may not have it back.
How about now?
If I don't get it back, we're about time to close. Let me say something too. I want to thank you and especially Tom Haley and the Haley Family Foundation as they sponsor our show, and we appreciate them so much. It's interesting that Randy Campbell said Tom Haley built his house in '92 and built me at mine in '93. And he's still building so many things around Auburn, but mostly we thank him for supporting this show, for supporting Auburn University, and supporting Auburn athletics. Thanks very much.
And Derek, you can't hear me. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you.
All righty.